Hello everyone, myself Patel Kavya. Today in this video we are going to talk about the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland, its name itself suggests that it is situated on the renal gland of our body. It is called as suprarenal gland. It is situated on the upper pole of our each kidneys. So we have two adrenal glands. And importance of the adrenal glands. Adrenal glands are called as essential endocrine gland because the absence of adrenocortical hormone causes death within a week, and the absence of adrenolomedullary hormone drastically decrease the resistance to the mental and the physical stress. That's why it is called as a life-saving gland. So we have three names of adrenal glands. One is life-saving gland, second is the essential endocrine gland, and third is suprarenal gland. Parts of the adrenal glands. We have two parts of adrenal gland. One is the adrenal cortex and the second is the adrenal medulla. Outer portion which contains the 80% of the gland, it is called as the adrenal cortex. It develops from the mesonephron. Now what is the mesonephron? Mesonephron, which act as functional intermediate kidney during the early development before permanent kidney metanephron takes over. It gives rise to the renal tissue, secrete different group of hormone known as corticosteroid. Adrenal medulla, the inner portion which contains 20% of the gland, it develops from the neural crest, which give origin to the sympathetic nervous system. Now, in this video, we are going to talk about the adrenal gland and mostly mineralocorticoids, only mineralocorticoids, which is aldosterone. Functional histology of adrenal cortex. So, adrenal cortex is formed by three layers structure which distinct from one to another. We have three parts, which is outer, middle, and inner. Outer part is zona glomerulosa, middle is zona fasciculata, and inner is zona reticularis. For this, we have mnemonic, which is GFR. Okay. Now, let's talk about the hormone which is secreted by the adrenal cortex. Adrenocortical hormones are steroids in the nature, so the name is corticosteroid. Based on their function, it classified into the three groups: mineralocorticoids, glucocorticoids, and the sex hormone. Let's talk about mineralocorticoids. So, the mineralocorticoids are the corticosteroids that act on the minerals, electrolytes, particularly sodium and the potassium. Mineralocorticoids are aldosterone, and another form is 11-deoxycorticosterone. Source of secretion of mineralocorticoids is zona glomerulosa of the adrenal cortex. So, function of mineralocorticoids. 90% of mineralocorticoid activity is provided by the aldosterone, which is life-saving hormone. Aldosterone is very essential for life. It maintains osmolarity and the volume of ECG. It is usually called as a life-saving hormone because the absence of this causes death within a week. Three important functions of mineralocorticoids are: it increases the reabsorption of sodium from the renal tubules, it increases the excretion of potassium through the renal tubules, and it increases the secretion of hydrogen into the renal tubules. Now, all the function of corticosteroid we are going to talk about, or the mineralocorticoids. First is action of sodium ions. Aldosterone acts on the distal convoluted tubules, which is DCT, and the collecting duct, which is CT, and increases the reabsorption of sodium. During the hypersecretion of the aldosterone, the loss of sodium through the urine is only for few milligrams per day. But during the hyposecretion of the aldosterone, the loss of sodium through the urine increases and it conducts to the hypernatremia up to 20 gram per day. In the hypersecretion, we have only few grams which is excreted out from the urine, and in the hyposecretion of the aldosterone, we have hypernatremia, which is the secretion of urine in sodium into the urine, like for the 20 gram per day. It proves that importance of the aldosterone in the regulation of sodium ion concentration and the osmolarity of in the body. Second function is the action on extracellular fluid volume. When the sodium ion are reabsorbed from the renal tubule, simultaneously water is also reabsorbed. Water reabsorption is almost equal to the sodium reabsorption. So, net result in the increase in ECF volume, like extracellular fluid volume, is increased. Even though aldosterone increase the sodium reabsorption from the renal tubules, the concentration of sodium in the body does not increase very much because the simultaneously reabsorption of the water, like sodium will gonna reabsorb from the renal tubules. With that, we have water also reabsorbed from the volume. Now, third is aldosterone escape, which is action on the blood pressure. So, increase in the ECF volume and the blood volume finally leads to increase in the blood pressure. So now we have to normalize the blood pressure. For that, we have escape phenomenon. Aldosterone escape refers to the escape of the kidney from the salt retaining effect of excess administration or the secretion of aldosterone, as in the case of the primary hyperaldosteronemia. Significance of the aldosterone escape is the aldosterone escape prevent the formation of edema, like inflammation of the body. Okay, the deficiency of aldosterone leads to two pathways, which is increase in the potassium concentration in the ECF and the decreased sodium and chlorine concentration in ECF. Now let's talk about the potassium one first. It leads to the cardiac toxicity. It leads to the arrhythmia like the rhythm changes of the heart, and then it leads to the cardiac death and it leads to the death. And the deficiency of aldosterone leads to another pathway, which is decrease in the sodium and the chlorine concentration in the ECF, which is decrease ECF volume, decrease blood volume, and cardiac dysfunction, circulatory shock, we have spelling mistake but still, circulatory shock, and the death. Now लेट्स टॉक अबाउट द aldosterone escape. इससे निकलने के लिए हमें aldosterone escape का यूज़ करना पड़ेगा. सो aldosterone escape increased aldosterone volume, reabsorption of excess sodium and water from the renal tubules, increase in ECF volume. सो यहाँ पे डिक्रीज़ हो रहा था सब कुछ, तो यहाँ पे हम इंक्रीज़ करेंगे. तो इंक्रीज इन द ECF volume, increase in arterial blood pressure, and we have two ways to increase the blood pressure. One is the secretion of ANP, BNP, and CNP from the cardiac muscle, and second is the pressure diuresis. Now, what is ANP? ANP is arterial natriuretic peptides. They are all peptides. It is arterial, it is brain, and it is C type of natriuretic peptides, which is secrete from the cardiac muscle. And the pressure diuresis leads to the excretion of sodium and water through the urine and decrease in the ECF volume. So it decrease the ECF volume. Okay, now let's talk about action on the potassium ion. Aldosterone increases the potassium excretion through the renal tubules when aldosterone is deficient. The potassium ion concentration in ECF increasing leading to the hyperkalemia. Hyperkalemia result into the serious cardiac toxicity with weak construction of heart and the development of the arrhythmia. In severe conditions, it may cause cardiac death. When the aldosterone secretion is increased, it leads to the hypokalemia and the muscular weakness. In the hypercalcemia, it leads to the cardiac death, and in the hypokalemia, it leads to the muscle weakness. Action on the hydrogen ion concentration. While increasing the sodium reabsorption from the renal tubules, aldosterone causes tubular secretion of hydrogen ion. To some extent, secretion of hydrogen ion is in the exchange of the sodium ion. It obviously reduces the hydrogen and concentration in the ECF. In normal conditions, aldosterone is essential to maintain acid-base balance in our body. In the hypersecretion, it causes alkalosis, and in the hyposecretion, it causes acidosis. So, maintenance of the acid-base balance is depend on the hydrogen ion concentration. Action on the sweat glands and the salivary glands. Aldosterone has almost similar effect on the sweat glands and the salivary glands as it shows renal tubules. Sodium reabsorption from the sweat glands under the influence of the aldosterone. Thus, the loss of sodium from the body is prevented. Some effect is shown into the saliva also. Thus, the aldosterone helps in the conservation of sodium in our body. Action on the intestine. Aldosterone increase sodium absorption from the intestine, especially from the colon, and prevent loss of sodium through the feces. Aldosterone deficiency leads to the diarrhea with loss of sodium and water. Thank you.